Hello, I am back with another shmup clear. This time I'm playing DoDonPachi DaiOuJou Arrange S. This is the arrange mode included in the M2 port that is out on PS4 and Switch. And I like this arrange, and there are a couple of interesting things that you see right off the bat here as we start off in stage 1. The first thing being that we are always in hyper mode. And because of this I picked type A. So type A in DOJ, or Blissful Death, has a stronger, more narrow shot, and so in Arrange S mode, since we're always in hyper mode, this makes the ship extremely powerful. And you can see here that for this mid-boss I'm wiping out all these enemies almost instantly, and you start off at max shot power, full hyper, so I can just stream back and forth in this first stage and pretty much pick off everyone that I see here. Another thing that you'll notice is that whenever you reach a mid-boss or a boss, defeating it gives you a life. So the arrange modes are very generous in the amount of lives that you're given here, which makes it a pretty good beginner mode to start with. If you have the M2 port and you're coming off of the super easy mode and you're thinking, wow, this is super easy. Or if you find it more difficult and you want to ramp up the difficulty a little bit, Arrange S is the perfect mode to go for because you're always in hyper, you're given a lot of lives, and you can kind of breeze through the stages pretty, at least the first 2 or 3 maybe, pretty simply without having to worry about losing too many lives. So here I'm just going to strafe back and forth, pick off the enemies. Another good thing I like about this is that there's an option where you can toggle the location of the B items. The B items, I think in Arrange S, are mainly for score purposes, where the higher your hit gauge, well, there's no hit gauge here, but the more amount of hits that you have when that gauge on the bottom is filled, your Renee gauge, then the higher score you get. So it's a little kind of score bonus that you get, but for the majority of the score, or the majority of the score that you do get in this mode, is based off of the lives you have at the end of the game. So if you're looking to score big here, then you really want to not die as much as possible. So that was stage 1, and here I have another extra life here, so I have 4 extends already. You can get a maximum of 19 extends, so if you no-miss this mode, you'll end the mode with 20 lives in stock, which is huge because the end of life bonus here is 50 million per life you have. So if you have all 20, that's a billion points right there that you have going into the end of the game, so that's huge. What that also means is that for survival purposes, this mode is very viable. You can kind of bully your way through the last boss, which you'll see here, and you can bully your way through any of the bosses because you're given those lives if you defeat the mid bosses and the bosses. Here's a neat little thing where if you fire on that building, you'll be given a shower of stars. So you have to watch out, the ships will try to trap you there. And one thing I'll go over too is the gauge on the bottom. So as I fire upon larger, medium, and larger sized enemies, the gauge fills up, and that's the Renee gauge. So whenever the Renee gauge is full and you destroy those enemies, then you're given a shower of bonus items, and it lasts a little while too, so that if you destroy enemies, I notice while that gauge is full for a little while, you'll also get bonus items from destroying those enemies. That's another kind of score incentive that you can take advantage of to increase your score. It doesn't really give you any more power, so it's purely for score purposes where you'll get those bonus items, which is kind of neat. Here we are in the hyper corridor, but we're already in hyper, so it's just a long roadway with buildings on the side, and tanks are going to come out of the buildings, and like in the first stage, you can strafe back and forth and pick off the enemies as they come out of the buildings and destroy the buildings, and you shouldn't have an issue. Another thing to point out is the hyper rank, and so on the gadget towards the left, you'll see I'm at hyper rank 15. As you gain more lives and you have more lives in stock, the game does get harder, in that the bullets become faster. So you can see that the bullets are becoming a little bit faster now, and towards the later levels they'll get really fast. So be careful with that. As you lose lives though, the bullet speed will decrease. So here I despise needle patterns. You see this a lot in S-Braid as well, where you have these patterns with these really thin needles. I am terrible at dodging those, so I get hit there. But For the most part, the patterns here are, I think they're based off of the super easy patterns. They're a little bit harder than super easy mode, so they're a little, the difficulty becomes with those bullets becoming fast as you gain more lives. So I got my extra life, I have 6 extends. Heading into stage 3, I'm feeling really good. And here you can see that, yeah, with type A, I'm just normally in an arcade mode that enemy takes a little while to destroy, but since I'm in hyper with type A, it's not a problem at all. But it's important to always stay moving, because now you can see how fast these bullets are coming in, and it's a really good exercise in misdirecting, because a lot of those bullets are aimed at me. So I'm kind of doing like a little U-shaped pattern, U-shaped movement back and forth to misdirect those bullets so that I can get my cutback lane ready to go. And then firing, and then just holding my shot and filling up the Renee gauge. I mean, I'm not really paying attention to the Renee gauge, since it doesn't offer me any power boost or anything, so it gives me the bonus stars, which is nice. So since I'm not really playing for score, I'm not paying attention to that gauge too much, although this mode is really good if you are a primarily survival player. Then scoring in this mode is just up your alley, because the more you survive, then the higher your score becomes. So here I'm trying to find the lane, just follow the lane of bullets here. Those bullets were pretty fast, so things are getting a little bit more difficult here. And here we have the rush of enemies where I'm trying to strafe as little as possible to get as much room as I can so I make it through. And here we go to the second half of stage 3, where things start to really ramp up here, where you have enemies coming from both sides and I have to destroy these towers. Fortunately, destroying those towers cancels the bullets that those towers bring up. Floating towers, I guess. And yeah, things are getting pretty fast, but I'm not too worried yet. So what I'll do is, as soon as those bullets get fired on me, I move forward and then to the side to dodge the enemies coming from the side here. So little floating pods, I move forward, then go up to the side. So always dodge, stay in the middle of those big structures there. And I got a little tight there, but not too bad. And then here's the last of the towers. And then this one's a little tricky, because as you move, the stream of bullets is aimed at you, so if you move too quickly, too fast, then the bullets will cover the whole screen and you'll get walled off. So here's the last part here. You have 2 of those. Destroy the big one, pick off the middle group of little floating turrets, and then destroy the right tower. And so now we're at the stage 3 boss. So here we're at the stage 3 boss. This one is pretty difficult because of these curved, very fast bullets. They don't overlap too much, but then now we head to this section where you just have to find your lane to cut back in and use that to cut back to here. And then here we have, ooh, I got lucky there because I didn't have the right lane to dodge laterally, but I managed to squeeze through a bullet there, so the cave hitbox saved me there. And here we are on the final pattern, which it's a little bit tricky. The bullets are kind of fast, but you have to, again, find your lane and kind of time where the bullets are going to end up, since they kind of overlap a little bit. But managed to defeat the boss without missing here, so I'm feeling really good. I'm thinking I'm going to get a very high score here. So now we're into stage 4, and so we're going to be met with these lines of enemies that are going to fly in through the sides, and they're going to gradually try to trap me here. The door is going to open, and now my objective is to destroy the turrets on the side as fast as possible. Of course, I take a hit there, but the idea is to try to get to the side, destroy those turrets as fast as possible, while avoiding those enemies that are flying off to the side. So it's a little tricky, but if you don't destroy those turrets on the side, then those bullets will trap you. So it's very important to really like make your way up there as fast as possible to pick them off. And you see that those planes get very low. So now we're on to the next section here. And here we're going to have a flood of enemies, and so I'm going to do the U-shaped pattern dodging here to misdirect him. And now we're at the trains. So the trains are tricky. It's kind of like a little rhythm. So you destroy a train, trying to get hit there, and then head to the other side to pick off the enemies that pop up. And I go around the world here, around the front of the train to dodge it, to pick it off. And then now the train's going to come on the other side here. This part's pretty hard for me to do. So I end up losing a few lives here. But go all the way around. I'm trying to destroy them as fast as possible because those walls of red bullets are really, and especially given how fast they're coming, they can be problematic. So I'm going all the way around again. Those tanks on those trains, the bullets are all aimed, so if I dodge around like that, then they're not going to hit me. And so now we have these ships here, just trying to find the cutback lane. A lot of this is finding those lanes that you can take your opportunity and cut back in. And I guess a good thing about the bullets being fast is that the lanes are, even though the bullets are traveling faster, the cutback lanes are a little wider. So here we are on the next mid-boss. This is where the secret extend is. If you destroy the 2 guns on the sides before destroying the core, then you get your 1-up. The tricky part about this is that normally you can use your laser to destroy the cartridges that are falling down, but since we don't have a laser in this mode, those cartridges can actually hurt you and you can't destroy them. So, but I got so it's an even trade. I lost a life, but I got the secret life, so I'm happy with that. Here we are on the rails. These move randomly, so you cannot predict exactly where they're going to move and what direction they're going to move. So this is what makes this part pretty challenging, because you have to destroy those as fast as possible before the next one spawns in. Otherwise, you're just going to be met with just another wall of bullets. Here's the next mid-boss. It's this giant cannon. When you see those lines pop up, those tiny vertical lines, then you know the cannon's going to fire. And I'm squeezing my way up. I don't think I'm going to destroy it in time. I think I missed it, yeah. So I didn't get to destroy it in time, which means that I don't get the life from destroying that mid-boss. But I'm not too sad about that. I have 7 lives in stock, so I'm pretty good. Here we are on the stage 4 boss. This is my favorite OST in the game. This boss, the Arrange boss soundtrack for this is very, very good. So I always get distracted fighting this boss because I'm over here bobbing my head and getting distracted. Like, oh gosh, I have to focus. So, but once you get to this next phase, I start on the side here and I just slowly make my way through, and I have to find my way through those red lines. And then here we have these discs that come out. A good strategy is to actually make your way inside those discs, but I end up staying on the bottom, which is a little bit more dangerous here. So I'm kind of making some risky dodges here, but I know the boss is almost dead, so I end up surviving anyways. But typically, as soon as those discs start popping out, you want to make your way in there to get a really good amount of damage in. So here we are on stage 5. This is where your resources really start to matter. This stage is very difficult, and then at the end of the stage you fight Koryu, the last boss, and then you fight Koryu again, or the Angry Bee, and then you fight Hibachi. So if you're looking to survive, if you can no miss or get as few misses as possible up to the stage, then I think you're in good shape. I have 8 lives in stock, so I'm confident I'm going to clear, but note that, yeah, Hibachi is still very difficult on Arrange S, so it could eat up all of your lives if you're not careful. Fortunately, there are 3 mid-bosses here, which means that I have a possible 3 extends plus Koryu. Defeating him twice is another 2, so this stage does give you a lot of extends so that you can reach the final fight with plenty of resources. And so this one, you want to misdirect those lasers. I thought I had had enough room there, and I get hit, and that's right. So I'm weaving my way through here. A nice thing about the M2 port for the mid bosses especially is that on the right of the screen I have the boss health, which is very useful for knowing how close I am to defeating it. Next up is the B section. The best way to beat this section is to simply memorize where those giant bees are going to pop up, because the faster you can destroy them, then the faster you can pick off those floating little turrets that are coming off on the side that they will wall you off if you're not moving around fast enough. And so the faster you can destroy those bees, then the better shape you are. This part is a little challenging because you have 2 popping up at once, but with the Type A ship, you'll notice that, especially with the Type A and Arrange S, they die very quickly. So here we're on the second mid-boss. The mid-boss won't start firing until a little while, so you get some free damage in, and then this pattern is pretty static, but the rotation is random, so just try to move as little as possible to find the lane that you need to go into. It's not terribly dense until you get to this part here, but with type A, by the time you get to that denser pattern, the boss will be pretty much dead. So now we're on the next part of the stage. We have this flood of enemies here. The same thing, I do U-shaped pattern to find a cutback lane. This boss is kind of tricky because you have these giant fireballs that I'm not really sure exactly where the hitbox is, because sometimes I feel like the fireball hits my ship and I don't die, but who knows. There I take a hit because of that sneaky little tiny turret on the side that I couldn't kill, and that's one disadvantage about not using the Type B ship. If I had the Type B ship, I probably would have been able to destroy it in time. And so here is another challenging part where we have these giant turret, these giant turrets that are firing off, and this is where the game starts to throw everything at you. So they swing around shooting these giant blue bullets, and then you have these ships here, and so you have to play a little bit aggressively to make sure that you destroy everything in time, but the dodging does get a little tight, so especially with how fast the bullets are, it's a little bit tight here, but I'm kind of trying to survive with as many lives as possible. I do think this stage is really well done, especially with the way the enemies come at you, and you have to really make sure that you are not too comfortable in your positioning here, because if you're not constantly moving, then yeah, the game they will get you. Here I get a lot of renegade, so got a lot of stars coming in my way, which is always nice to see. But strafing back and forth is how I'm going to survive. So I saw the cutback lane there, and I I moved a little bit too fast and I missed it. So that cutback lane was a little tight. So I'm still at hyper rank 15 though, so the bullets are still at max rank. I think it won't go into lower rank until I lose more lives, but I made it to the end. I'm on Koryu, and this boss is tough because it has a lot of overlapping patterns. So overlapping patterns are a bit tough, and it has those needle patterns, which I hate. I hate dodging those needle patterns, but fortunately it didn't last too long. So this one can be a little challenging, and one thing with the bosses that makes Arrange S kind of challenging is that you don't have access to any bombs. So you can't bomb and you can't laser, you're just simply in hyper. So that's why it's important to stockpile those lives as much as you can. So I defeated Koryu, I got my life, and so now I have to fight him again, floating in the air, and so here I'm just kind of strafing, and I'm hanging around the middle to stay relatively free of those bullets, and then with Type A, once I hit past that second pattern, he's dead already. So here I have Hibachi, which is kind of nice that you get to fight him in an arrange mode. Usually you can't fight him unless you're like in a second loop of white label or black label, so kind of nice that you can experience this fight in an arrange mode. I like the way that M2 gave that opportunity to us, but this is very tricky. It is very, very fast bullets, but you have to dodge between those lanes, and so I'm halfway there with Type A. I'm taking advantage of the firepower that I have, and here we have a mini washer machine. I call this the delicate cycle, because it's still pretty difficult. The bullets are curved, they do get a little dense, but as long as you kind of stay in the middle and you just bully the boss with your bombs, or sorry, not with your bombs, but bully the boss with your shot, especially with Type A, then you can make it out with losing maybe 2, maybe 3 lives. So overall I'm fairly happy. I have 6 lives in stock, so I'm going to get an extra bonus of 300 million for that, which is nice. Not the biggest score, but I'm happy with where I ended up, and there you have it. So I think Arrange S is a pretty good beginner mode. I like how it reminds me of Crimson Clover's boost mode. So I played a lot of Crimson Clover, and in boost mode it's kind of similar. Once you go into your hyper, you stay there until you get hit, and then you leave it. With Arrange S here, you're always in your hyper, so kind of a similar mode there. I enjoy playing that kind of style where you have a lot of firepower, and it makes up for it with faster bullets and the enemies becoming more aggressive as you stockpile more lives. So overall I enjoy this mode. I do wish there were more ways of earning score, or there were greater incentives with filling up your Renee gauge rather than just getting bonus stars. Maybe there was a I don't know. I mean, you're already at max power, so you can't really get more power than that. Otherwise, the game would be too unbalanced in your favor. But maybe if there was a way, maybe not bullet cancels, but some sort of other incentive that made you want to fill up the renege gauge more, or some other property rather than just bonus items, I think that would have been nice. But overall, I think it was pretty good change from normal white label and the arcade mode, and I think it was definitely a lot of fun to play. And the Arrange soundtrack is fantastic. So even when I play the arcade mode, I play the Arrange soundtrack because it's really good. But yeah, if you enjoyed this commentary and you found this helpful, then please subscribe and drop a like. I'd appreciate it. And for now, I'll see you until the next one. Thank you, everyone. Take care.